It was clear last night on a debate stage here in Atlanta, Georgia, that Jimmy Carter on his deathbed 2 hours south of here could have had a more cogent, coherent debate than Joseph Robinette Biden did last night. Trump did not have a great debate, only in contrast to Joe Biden, did he? But it still made Donald Trump look capable of being a competent president of the United States compared to Joe Biden. So what do the Democrats do? Well, they keep Joe Biden, of course. Huh? Just hear me out here. How is this going to play out? Because the conclusion last night of all the Democrats was, well, Joe Biden obviously has to be replaced. Nancy Pelosi has released a statement this morning saying there will be no other nominee. Joe Biden has released a statement saying he is going nowhere. It actually makes some sense, and I want to walk you through my thinking on this. Feel free to disagree with me, but I want you to understand my thinking, and it is my thinking after talking to a number of freaked out and panicked Democrats overnight and this morning. I was up until 2 a.m. and then back up at 6 a.m. this morning. Democrats really want a new nominee. Here's the problem. The delegates to the Democratic National Convention are legally now bound to Joe Biden, who has 99% of the delegates. So they can't force those delegates to change their mind, and those delegates can't change their mind if they want to. They're legally bound to Joe Biden. And some of you are thinking, well, what about the super delegates? If you will recall, in 2016, because of Bernie Sanders' insistence, the Democrats for Hillary Clinton changed the rules of the Democratic National Convention. Superdelegates only have an impact on a second ballot of a contested convention. On the first ballot, all the delegates are bound to the guy with the most delegates. That's Joe Biden. The only way for Joe Biden to go away is for Joe Biden to decide to go away. Joe Biden has to be convinced to step aside, and Joe Biden has a massive chip on his shoulder, convinced this should have been his all along. He's been running for it since 1988. He finally got it. He doesn't want to leave. And what would he go home to? 2 drug-addicted children and Jill Biden and his dogs who bite. Why would he want to give this up? Now, there's a larger problem here. Put very bluntly and frankly, Joseph Robinette Biden is a man who abandoned his 2 sons after his wife and daughter were killed in a car wreck so that he could go play senator in Washington, D.C., where he's been for the last 50 years. His favorite son ultimately died of cancer. His surviving son turned his brother's widow into a crack addict. Jill Biden likes to play doctor, professor. This is not a functional, normal family that can sit down and say, Dad, sweetheart, you need to retire. This isn't a functional family. In fact, it came out yesterday in a little notice story in Axios that even Barack Obama has referred to the Joe Biden family dynamic as quote unquote weird S word, poop. That's how Barack Obama has relayed to friends the Joe Biden family dynamic. This is not a family capable of sitting down and telling Joe Biden to retire. They're on the gravy train. So who can do it? If Jill Biden will not allow them in to see her president to do it. And he's surrounded by a bunch of people who are still furious with Barack Obama. But there's more than that to this that you have to understand. An open convention would be the worst possible thing for the Democrats because since 2016, the Democrats have fueled la resistance to battle and oppose the Republicans and in particular Donald Trump. And la resistance, with the help of the media and the Democrats and progressive prosecutors, has become so emboldened that at this moment they are chasing Jews through the streets of America, blocking Jewish access to college campuses, and beating people up as they come out of synagogue in Los Angeles. They're storming golf courses in the middle of golf games and baseball fields in the middle of baseball games for various progressive causes. They're taking over college campus buildings, knowing they will not be prosecuted. And those people will go to Chicago thinking they are in charge. The mob will be in charge. The Democrats have put the mob in charge. And the mob is progressive and will not move to the right to a more moderate candidate. And that's the sort of candidate the Democrats will have to nominate to beat Donald Trump. You people are obsessed with Gavin Newsom because you're Republicans, and Fox News and Newsmax cover Gavin Newsom obsessively as if he's going to be the guy. Talk to any Democratic strategist in America, and they will tell you every Democratic governor hates Gavin Newsom's guts. They think he is, well, to use the pig Latin, icde, and they do not want him to be president because Gavin Newsom is too far left. They want a more moderate, perceived as centrist Democrat, which they can't do at an open convention. The path of least resistance is actually to keep Joe Biden in place, who, first of all, you would have to convince him to give up the race anyway. And then if he gives up the race, they got a Kamala Harris problem. She's less popular than Joe Biden, but she's also the first black female vice president of the United States. How do you shove her aside with the historic argument that back in the day when a president stood down, his white male vice president also stood down and didn't run back before we had primary conventions? Good luck with that precedent. Path of least resistance for the Democrats is to stick with Joe Biden and be convinced that Donald Trump doesn't have a ground game. He's outsourced it to Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA group, and outside Republican groups are starting to get freaked out by what they're seeing on that. So the Democrat ground game is on fire, and guess what? The nation is 50-50 split. Do you really think the polling that didn't move very much in against Donald Trump after conviction is going to move against Joe Biden after what we saw last night? The nation's pretty evenly divided. So you maximize your progressive turnout, you make more promises to the progressives, and you get them to turn out for Joe Biden. The other thing Joe Biden could do is wait for the Democratic convention to be over and then say he's not capable of doing it, and the Democratic Governors Association or the Super Delegates of the DNC and the former Democratic presidents, they get to pick the nominee. They could do that. I'm not saying Joe Biden won't step aside, but I am saying it's far likelier that he stays. The odds are better that he stays on and maximizes his ground game and tries to rally the troops. They want to stop Donald Trump, so by God, let's rally to stop Donald Trump, and then you'll have Kamala Harris, and I'll go out to pasture. They should replace Joe Biden. If they were smart, they would find a left of center, but not Gavin Newsom Democrat. They want Gretchen Whitmer. They want a woman. They don't want Gavin Newsom because he's a white male. The intersectionalists won't allow it. The governor of Kentucky, frankly, is the guy they should go with. Andy Beshear has reliably won a red state as a progressive Democrat. That would be their smart pick. It's who major Democratic strategists think would be a smart pick because he also has a fundraising base, but he's untested. Instead, they probably give it back to Hillary Clinton. The Democrats, yes, I agree with all of you. After what we saw last night, the Democrats should replace Joe Biden. The problem is not what they should do, but what they can do, and they can't replace Joe Biden if Joe Biden does not want to go anywhere. Joe Biden must be convinced to go somewhere, and who's going to convince him? Barack Obama, who Joe Biden resents for not backing him in 2016? Nancy Pelosi, who today said, no, we're not going to replace our nominee. He had a bad debate, but he's fine. Jill Biden, who does not want Joe Biden to leave the White House lest he then dies and she's stuck with Ashley and Hunter Biden's problems by herself. Who's going to convince Joe Biden to step aside? He doesn't have to. And then if he does, they open themselves up to la resistance, taking charge at an open Democratic convention in Chicago where the socialist mayor is on the side of the protesters, not the police. They did this to themselves. I have no sympathy for them. For more than 4 years, they and their friends in the media have circled the wagons around Joe Biden and demanded that we not believe our eyes, insisted that Joe Biden was fine, gaslit us every single time Joe Biden had a faux pas. Just last week, they were calling it cheap fakes. I expect the dim-witted White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, to come out today and insist that that was an AI cheap fake of Joe Biden on the debate stage last night, that CNN had a 1.5-minute delay, she read on Twitter, so it must be true. And it was all designed to make Joe Biden look bad. Last night, the public saw with its own eyes the emperor has no clothes, and the media, the press corps, not the pundits, the reporters, have been lying to us for years. There's no coming back from that. But also for the Democrats, their problem is there may be no getting away from it either. Joe Biden has to be the one to say it's time to go. Good luck convincing a man with that big a chip on his shoulder And then if once he's gone, what do you do? An open convention would be a disaster. A brokered convention would largely be impossible. The best way would be to stick with Joe Biden and rally the troops for a ground game, or at least get through the convention, and then Joe Biden can step aside. But for now, expect Joe Biden to stick around for a while, if not through the whole thing. But last night, that was the end of Joe Biden's campaign.